Good morning, everyone.
Mhm.
Morning.
I am in a super mood.
Oh,
Great,
good.
great. I don't know if it's because it's hot, but I couldn't wait to get here.
Bless your heart.
That's good.
Given that, I hope everyone had or through the roll call.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners and City Council representatives. Read the roll. Mr. Barber.
Here.
Mr. Drury.
Here.
Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Smith is absent and Ms. Boone is absent. Chair, we have a quorum.
Great. Good to see you, Mimi.
Good to see you too. Good to see you all.
Didn't see behind. I hope that everyone had a chance to review the June 20th meeting minutes. And if there are no revisions or changes,
Move for approval.
take a motion in second.
Vote by Saunders Smith and a second by Mr. Barber. Roll, Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Ms. Drury.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Chair, the item is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, why don't we do old business? Brian, you take that.
Your first item of old business today is revisiting an extension request for 1021 1107 High Street. This is the property that is under a development agreement with A4 Development Group. Mr. Keels has been before you recently to provide you with some updates on the status of his project. Most recently, that included a amended conditional use permit to accommodate some of the changes that were necessary to the project. That was obtained from the City Council in May of this year. He now has a site plan under review that is proceeding through the process. However, he does need additional time to complete that. We are targeting an additional 6 months for that process to occur. So he is requesting a third extension to the agreement, which would provide a new expiration date of January 19th, 2024. We do have a resolution that has been prepared. I believe that was distributed in your meeting package. But we do have a need for some action on this item today.
Are there any questions from the commissioners in regards to this? City manager.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So we're giving him a third extension to purchase the property. Yes or no? Yes. Okay.
To expand on that, a third extension in order to obtain his necessary approvals to facilitate the closing and his purchase of the property. So he has to have a site plan approval in order to do that.
But they've done that. Okay, let me back up. So we've had a couple of the last council meeting that he attended, they approved his site plan. I know he had some changes a couple of times, and then they went from 52 to 48 and then something else back down. And then I think it changed again because they went up instead of a cross on the top, something additional things. I've been trying to keep up with the other 1,000 things I got going on, and I remember them approving it during the meeting. Okay. The last time I was here, a couple of times before I was here, you all gave him an extension to purchase the land. That was the second one. So what I'm asking, just so for my clarification, because maybe y'all already know, you're giving him a third extension because has he purchased the land yet?
No.
Okay, so it doesn't matter about the site plan. At the end of the day, he hasn't purchased the land. Does he have, or has he provided you all with an intent or an obligation or something that holds his feet to the fire? So after January, you're not coming back saying, hey, I need another extension, because this seems like it's been kicked down the road many, many times. I think the project is great. Don't take that as a misunderstanding from me. I think it's a great project. I think, you know, he may have run into a few obstacles, along the way, but he has been able to do it. I'm just concerned that the longer you hold this property, someone else could possibly purchase the property and do the same type of thing. I don't want anybody to start over. I just want to make sure that there's some level of obligation that you get from Mr. Keels that says, here's a drop dead deadline, because I said the last meeting, sitting here beside the councilman, oh, he gonna ask for another extension because he ain't gonna be ready. I did I not? And here we are. Just happened to be at this meeting that I came to, but I just think that there's some level of obligation that you ought to receive. Did he put a deposit down? Are you holding something? Because you're losing money every day that this property is not being advertised or available for someone else to develop it. I'm just, I'm just asking.
All very good questions. We do have a escrow deposit, that Mr. Kills provided when he entered into the agreement. The January 19th, 2024, date is a drop dead date, so he will have no right to extend beyond that, unless the EDA was to revisit that and provide any further extensions. The issue with the site plan, and we did obtain city council approval, but it was for the layout, and the conditional use permit, which now he's under the staff review process for an actual site plan. So site plan has not yet been approved, but that is under review. The closing is contingent upon him having a site plan approval, and essentially permits ready to be issued and financing in place. So when those two things are ready, then he would have the ability to close and purchase the property. And the goal would be to have him there prior to January 19th of 2024.
When was the start date of all this? When did this originally begin?
June of, I'm sorry, excuse me, March 16th of 2021. We're just over 2 years into the process.
So when people say, and the reason I'm making a big deal, we have people that tend to say, Portsmouth holds me up, Portsmouth holds me up, and I'm not able to do anything because Portsmouth holds me up. But what people don't understand is when it's at this level and it comes through economic development, it's not Portsmouth holding it up, because that's the communication that will go out in the community. It's they don't have the funding to be able to do it, or there is some other changes that have happened. I've seen it and I've heard it say it over and over. And I just, where my position is, I hate that Portsmouth gets that bad rap and reputation about somebody's holding us up here, but it's not Portsmouth that's holding us up in this particular situation. It is financing, funding, and some other things along the way. And I just wanted to say that for clarification, because that tends to always be the communication in the community about what Portsmouth didn't do. So I just, for the record, I wanted to be able to say that.
Well, we certainly want to fast track every developer.
Yeah, me
comes our
too.
way.
18 months.
But I think in this particular case, there were issues with the plan being accepted, and everything was put on hold until he got approval from city council. And then I won't say it restarted, but it was on pause and we were waiting for that. So we have delayed him a little bit. But hopefully this will be the last one.
January, because it's been 2 years, so January. When does he come back? January, what's the extension to?
January 19th of next year, 2024.
Okay.
And Madam Manager, to your point, it's not uncommon for a development project, whether it comes through the EDA or just through the city processes and channels, to take 12 to 18 months to see itself through the process, because those things happen. When you look at the need to obtain a conditional use permit or rezoning, that's a 90 to 120 day process. The site plan review process can take 6 months, sometimes longer if they have challenges or issues or changes. So 12 to 18 months is not unheard of or uncommon. Obviously, we want to expedite it and see it happen quicker, but that's pretty standard.
Right,
So
but
we're a
when,
little bit beyond that here.
yeah, but when I see a casino built in 18 months, when I see, and I know the process because you have to go through the state. When I see a place beside Chick-fil-A being built overnight, and I look at other things around the community and a Chipotle and a Starbucks being built, I understand the background work that's involved, and I see 1,000 car washes come up in 2 days. It's just, for me personally, one of the things that I'm pushing staff is when you accept a project, you look at a timeline and we're gonna stick by it. Because I just hate to see things move at a snail's pace in Portsmouth because of something silly holding it, or something that has no purpose holding it up. And so when we talk about timelines from start to finish, 18 months, 120 days, those are the things that I want to hold to our staff, to ensure that we see movement here. I didn't mean to spend so much time on this, but I know every time I come, we talk about this project. And I've had to talk about it from my seat at City Hall. So I was just curious of how long, how much longer, and how many more changes, and was the financing done? And is the land still available? And, what are we doing? So I appreciate the insight.
We have a couple questions, Commissioners, but I would think it would be interesting if you could identify two similar sized projects. And the one that was approved relatively quickly versus the one that was not. And maybe we can look at that and see what were the differences.
Yeah, I know.
From an educational perspective.
Yeah.
To help the next developer.
Because one thing, and one of the things that I've sat down with staff is just this: we have to start getting on the front end of a project.
Absolutely.
So for instance, when EDA is entertaining a developer and they want to come, what we need to do is not wait to after to start saying, this is the land, this is the site, this is what you need, this is what we have. We need to approach them and say, we've got this site ready to go. Engineering has this plan, provide this, provide that, and we're going to pre-do some of these things. So then when you come to the table, because we already know you're interested, we've addressed it on the front end, and it doesn't take all that time on the back end. Because as a developer, you get frustrated. You're saying, why can't y'all figure this out? Why can't you get this right? But if you're picking out a site that's not going to work, we're able to get that on the front side and say, no, that's not gonna work, but under this condition, it will. Let's see what we can do to get it done free. So when it gets to this development stage, all that stuff is done. Whatever we can do in advance, we want to be able to do in advance. Because as a developer, comes in, we want them to come to us. But we want to have our stuff right so it makes sense when they get here, and we don't waste their time or frustrate them. Because one of the things I don't want to hear is a developer say, oh, I hate doing business in Portsmouth because they don't know what they're doing, or it takes too long to get a project going. And I've heard it, and I just want it to stop and figure out, what are we doing wrong to make sure that we don't have to deal with that or hear that anymore. Yeah.
Absolutely. Commissioner.
I have some questions, just for clarity's sake. Who's reviewing the site plan currently? What city department is responsible for currently reviewing the site plan as it stands now?
So it's many departments, but primarily the city engineering office oversees the site plan review process, but other departments participate in that, utilities, planning, zoning. So there's many different departments involved, but that's overseen by the city's engineering department.
And the second question is, what was the date and the reason for the first and second extensions?
The date for the, are you asking about the approval date or what the?
So you say this is his third extension that we're discussing now? The project started on March 16th, 2021. What was the first extension date and what was the reason for that?
The first extension was through January of 2023, January 20th of 2023. And that was due to the inability to submit the site plan because of some of the changes, the modifications that were necessary to the project. When they originally obtained their use permit, it was based on a conceptual plan and layout. As they got into the design process, it was determined there were some things that had to relocate. There was a retention pond, if you remember, that was on King Street side of the property. It had to relocate to High Street. There were some other changes to the layout that necessitated a new use permit, and the site plan couldn't get reviewed until that happened. The second extension was through July 20th, so this week. And that was to allow for them to get their use permit amended and approved for those changes to be accommodated. So now that has happened. The plan is under review with city staff. So this third extension would be for them to obtain their site plan approval and permits with the expectation that they would close prior to January 19th of 2024.
Now, let me ask you,
Cover what you're.
it's along the lines, I could work with that information. But let me ask you this, if he had the money during any time of these extensions, would he still be required to have an extension? If money was taken out of the equation and just the work that needed to be done to grant him the permissions was in place, would he still have been required to get these extensions?
In order to allow for him to purchase the property or?
Well, I'm saying I'm hearing that the reason for the extensions is because he lacks money, not because of the actual reasons that you just gave me.
The reason for the extensions, it's not related to the financing, it's related to the site plan approval.
Right, and the site plan approval process is the responsibility of the city or comes from the city?
It's the responsibility of the developer, but there is a city review and approval process that he needs to work through.
Okay, I'm just trying to find out, I'm trying to pinpoint the cause of the reasons for the extensions. The specific reason, was it the developer's reason? Was it the developer's fault that we needed these extensions, or was it the city's fault that he needed these extensions?
The extensions were based on changes that the developer determined to be necessary. So it was the developer's process and responsibility to move the project forward. If they had to make changes to their design, then that was the responsibility of the developer, not the city staff.
If you remember, we almost had a cutoff date if he didn't submit to us planning. We came in that day with all the drawings. That was like 2 days to the cutoff date. So to some degree, he has lacked a little bit in terms of preparation, getting it to city engineering department to review.
But let me also be clear with this. If prior to the 19th of January next year, if Mr. Kills obtains his approvals, has his financing in place, there's nothing to prohibit him from closing sooner than that deadline. But it's ultimately his responsibility as the developer to achieve that. So there's nothing preventing him from achieving a sooner closing date, but that would be the ultimate drop dead date for that.
Commissioner Smith?
Just a couple comments. To the city manager, appreciate your thoughtfulness about this. I will say that I'm glad that this is the spirit for future for the developers. This has not always been the case, but we do appreciate that. And I think when he came the last time, I think we kind of talked about this and knew that another extension was coming. So it's not really coming as a surprise to us. We knew that this and what you're saying is correct. Our drop down date was January. In our minds, that's what we thought would happen. So it's not a surprise.
Okay. So I guess moving forward, it probably would be better to look at it as instead of a 3 month, maybe a 6 month, so you don't have to keep doing that just for future. Because what happens is when a person, we keep coming back and you hear the same thing, you're questioning, what are you doing? Why? If you know the process takes more than 120 days, why are you giving them up 30-day or 3-month extension. You might as well give it the 6 months. That way, everything that needs to be addressed can be addressed in that time period. And then they just give you updates along the way. That's just, my perspective, because we understand development projects take a while, especially trying to get its financing, especially if there were changes in the site plan, just to make sure that it doesn't come to this situation again where you're constantly questioning, because this was the last conversation I had the last time I was here. And I wasn't aware, and I appreciate that for the information that you all knew in advance, it would be in January, because I came in, because I've seen the plans, I've been on the engineering side of what's the deal with this. And so I was under the impression that it was ready to go and y'all were just gonna get it done by now. But I will be dealing with engineering to see where it is in the process. Because again, I think it's a great project. I think it's a great project. He's made some adjustments. I've seen the plan. It looks great. I'm just tired of hearing about it at this point. You know, because it's just been hanging out there. And if it's something that the ball dropped on my side, then I absolutely want to address it. But if it's just been on another because of other things, you know, that still raises a concern for me because I want to know why. Again, I'm excited about the project. I'm excited about the project and I think it's gonna do well in the city. I just want it to move forward so that that land could be used for and the housing for and residents so that we can move on to some other projects that we want to see happen because of by bringing in more residents in the city of Portsmouth.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barber and a second by Mr. Drury. We can roll Mr. Barber.
All right.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Dr. Smith.
Yes.
Here, the item is approved by a vote of 5-0.
No further discussion on that one. Why don't we move into our Portsmouth at Work briefing?
Yes, thank you. Chair, I'm going to turn this over to Nala Salih. She's going to be providing you with an update briefing on the Portsmouth at Work program. Looking forward, you know, it's now July, so we're in the new fiscal year. We were very fortunate to have Ms. Lee join our team in April. She's been working between then and now to really kind of revamp, restructure, and relaunch this program, which I think is really doing amazing things for our residents, providing career pathways and opportunities for higher employment. So Nala's got what I think is a really great plan for moving forward, and Nala's going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. So I'm excited to present today. It's been a lot of planning, a lot of revamping of Portsmouth at Work and bringing a lot of new ideas and programs. So if we don't start. So what is Portsmouth at Work? It's just an overall, and it hasn't changed because Portsmouth at Work is a hub for workforce. So what we want to do is to build accessibility to workforce resources and services for the residents of Portsmouth by providing employment, to increase the quality of life. And that could be through training, that could be just by helping them find a job. We want to be a form of an environment to collaborate and strengthen the connection with different partners and different departments in the city as well. So these past 3 months, I've been in a lot of meetings with different department heads and different nonprofits and community organizations trying to bring in new collaborations to Portsmouth at Work and to see what else we could do to provide services that will help the unemployed and underemployed residents of Portsmouth. So what is the plan for fiscal year 2024? We're going to talk about a little bit about the new partners and collaborations that's going to happen for this year. We're going to talk about the new marketing and community engagement that Portsmouth at Work is going to do, and the new data and how we're going to collect data, and how we are probably going to continue as well. The funding and new programs that we're bringing into Portsmouth at Work, that's going to provide training for the residents as well. So new partners and collaborations, Portsmouth at Work is going to serve like again as a hub. And what we're going to do is we're going to work with partners and community organizations to help assist individuals by providing services that will target their employment goals and increase their quality of life. So these are a lot of organizations that I've been meeting with, but not all of them. I'm still working on getting a few more. A lot of them are going to be community organizations, like the neighborhood, that's going to help us, provide more services for workforce. It is a nonprofit workforce organization. We're going to be working a lot with the Virginia Employment Commission, actually here today, to provide services for individuals that are going to need employment or need, to navigate if they were laid off or if they need a job or assistance with their unemployment. Because, we're serving as a hub today, actually, because they're renovating, they're moving into a new space. So they're here today to provide accessibility to Portsmouth residents so they don't have to go to Norfolk. So they're meeting people every week here. We've seen a lot of people come here to meet with the Virginia Employment Commission. In addition to that, we're collaborating on hiring events. So every Wednesday, we're targeting a hiring event in this space. And we're collaborating with the Virginia Employment Commission, but also the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. They were here last month. So we're collaborating with them and working with them to do hiring events. In addition to a weekly hiring event in this space, we're going to collaborate with the Virginia Employment Commission and the Hampton Roads Workforce Council to do a yearly job fair. We just secured the space this week with TCC. So that's going to be targeted for Portsmouth businesses to be there. We're going to hopefully have 30 vendors. It's going to be in February. So we're in the beginning stages of planning with the council and the Virginia Employment Commission. But we're hopefully going to have targeted businesses in Portsmouth, but also some regional businesses as well, just to make it a little bit broader. So the biggest goal for our partners, again, is to do a referral system. So if we have a client that needs a job right away, Bond Secure is one of our new partners that has a great patient care technician program that we're going to work with. And we know someone wants to work in healthcare, starting off, we could refer them. So a lot of the organizations are going to help us bring customers here by, exposure and telling them, hey, you need a job, you need help with training. The city has Portsmouth at Work, so they're going to send their clients or their customers over. But in turn, what we're going to do, if we know someone needs assistance with a small business, right? If they need assistance, that would be this. If they need, or if it's a business that I'm meeting with and they need business services and they need funding for a certain project, we refer them to the Hampton Roads Workforce Council because they have funding for that. So a lot of this partnership that we have built is going to help serve more residents by using other organizations' resources as well. So a lot of these are just great avenues to serve more residents of Portsmouth.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what is the youth build? That one I don't know.
So Youth Build, it is a program for youth, I believe it's 14 to 21. The Portsmouth Housing Authority actually received a grant, so we're meeting with them in 2 weeks. What it is going to take anyone that has, dropped out of high school and needs their GED or their high school diploma. They'll put them into the Youth Build. Part of it is getting their high school diploma or GED, and then after that, they're going to get a credential in construction. They're working with TCC, and TCC will be the avenue or the school that's going to train the students. And once they have their high school diploma and a credential, they're going to help them find employment. So it's targeted for youth. They're not just going to be working with the youth in the redevelopment housing. It's open to Portsmouth youth in general.
And we participated in this program last year. However, it was hosted in Newport News. So we partnered with PRHA to bring it to Portsmouth. And in addition, to the PRHA residents having access, any other city resident would have access through our office, and we're going to participate in financial support for that.
So can I ask my biggest question, and I know you have more, but, and this has come up before, I think Anthony, you brought it up. How are we getting the word out to the residents about all of this so that they know?
I think that's my next.
Okay.
Good lead-in.
Okay. Marketing and community engagement. So how are we going to market and get the word out to the community? So what we have been doing is, one, I've been meeting with a lot of community organizations, a lot of partners, a lot of department heads this past 3 months. So I've been moving and grooving in Portsmouth and learning a lot about it. So what we're doing, we have developed a large distribution list of partners, community organizations, city departments to receive regular updates about Portsmouth at work. This could include, city departments, but also regional nonprofits that serve Portsmouth residents that actually go, like United Way, the food bank. So we're actually connecting with their CEOs, their executive directors, and their staff. So they will receive. We have developed a monthly calendar with all our events, and then we'll actually make flyers every month about our hiring events, our workshops. So what we are doing in the center is bringing in not just Portsmouth businesses, but businesses in this region, because sometimes a Portsmouth resident might want to work for some, the food bank, or anyone that's willing to come and partner with Portsmouth at Work. We're working with them, and we're also offering in-person workshops. We resume interview and an interview workshop. So we're actually partnering with PRHA and the social services to bring their customers and their residents here, because they have programs, but they want also to use our resources in-house as well. We're working with the city marketing team to promote our flyers and our calendars by using the city's website, their social media, our social media, economic development social media. So they're sending out, the marketing team, emails to the residents and also posting it on our avenues of social media. We also are promoting our material on other partners on social media. So we're asking the council to put it on there, so these partnerships are going to allow our marketing efforts to be in other websites and other organizations as well. Does that hopefully answer? Okay.
Yeah.
So data collection, for the fiscal year of 2023, I just went over and I wanted to present what Portsmouth has done. Granted, I was at the tail end of that year. So approximately 624 new online enrollments of one or more programs with Portsmouth at Work. So that means that's how many people have, registered and showed interest in some type of program with our center. Approximately 108 individuals have been enrolled in training. There are 24 men, 82 women, and 2 have not responded. 50 young adults, 48 middle-aged, and 9 older. 98% are African American, 5 Caucasian, and 2 other and 3 unknown. The programs that we had during that time was CBL, healthcare, and youth build. So a lot of them have gone to the healthcare industry, CBL, and then 7 youth build. So how are we gonna? So the way we were collecting data was very using a software that we have. We're going to continue using that software, but I'm going to bring in-house internal data collection. My experience in workforce development is you need an internal, case management data collection. So it's easier if Brian needed something, he could easily just get this report that we have in-house, and he'll see what the numbers he needs. Because sometimes not everyone could navigate the software that we have, but if you have something internally that we know we need to capture this information, and it's very important for workforce development, that's what we are going to start using. The biggest thing is that we have updated the intake form. So this will capture the demographics of the individuals coming into our center. So, I made it on the iPad that we have in the front desk, where anyone that comes in, regardless if they're not even meeting with us, we want to know why you're coming into the center. And we want to know who are you meeting with, we want to know your background. So we have been using it, and it's capturing a lot of great information. Because we want to know how many people have directly we've impacted, but how many referrals have been out there. We want to see which referrals were the ones that we need to continue and build those relationships. So it's very important to know that. In addition, we have a participant log. This participant log is only for individuals that are going to be enrolled into training. This log is very essential for our case management aspect. So our workforce development specialist is going to be using this internal log to case manage and help capture the information for each individual that we fund. And this is a long log that goes, it's pretty much like telling that person's story. The day that they enrolled, the day they start training, what training they're going into, if they receive a credential, now what is their employment before they were enrolled, and now what their employment after. And then we do a follow to see how they're doing. Are they still employed? And then, we use them if, it's a lot of them, if the success story, we use them, and we actually update our testimonials on our website of really great success stories from last year. We're gonna have a hiring event log. Not everyone that comes through our doors are gonna be funded by us for trainings, but we want to capture anyone that does attend our hiring event. So we're asking our employers that use our space, once they have completed their hiring event, we want to know the numbers of hires that they've received using our space, what the job titles are, and what the wages are. So we could see how efficiently this space is being used and continue getting that information and that data. So new demographics that we're actually collecting is employment information after they're completing the training, and we're following up. And also we're gonna see how many veterans we're touching. We really, we're really doing that last year, but I feel I've worked with veterans, I'm a military spouse myself. So I think it's very important to show the veterans and how we're impacting them in this area as well, because then we could use resources for them and bring those resources if we see a large number of veterans coming through our center. Funding for this year, the department, our department is going to be 5,000, and that's going to be for admin, copier, loans, things that we need in this office. So we have gone back to CDBG, the planning department, and I've actually worked with them, and we received, let me go a little bit down. We've received $46,165 for programming. So that's gonna go into helping individuals fund training. But we also received $42,759 to pay for the rent of this space. So that's new for this year. And that's a really great, it's a big deal, I feel like, being able to take that money and put it into something else. Especially that if we could touch more people in fund them for training. ARPA is going to be 250,000, which is programming, totally going to go into funding training. EDA, 200,000. That 50,000 that was going to rent is going back to the EDA. So a lot more people are going to get funded for going to school. And then partners, so we're using partners in this area like the Hampton Rural Workforce Council, Bond Secure, the neighborhood, the Community Coalition Organization. They have funding for program to go and enroll people and fund them for training. So if we know there's someone that we can refer to their training and they could fully fund them, we're gonna make those referrals. So someone could come into our space and say, hey, I wanna go and go into IT. We don't have an IT vendor, but we have a partner that does. So we're gonna make that connection and make sure they get the funding through their partners. So we have talked to our partners and we're working with them so they know and they understand that we're gonna make referrals to them. And we have a process in place, so they know that they're gonna be referred to us, and they're gonna help us once they case manage them, they're gonna give us, hey, how they're doing, did they find a job? So we'll know what's going on with those individuals. programming for 2024. So there's gonna be a little bit of changes for programming. So the programs are targeted for the industries in this area, in this sector. And we're gonna target the high demanding training for Portsmouth, and that's going to be logistics, maritime, transportation, and healthcare. So some new, well, we're continuing to work 160 Driving Academy, but pretty much the rest of them are going to be new. The Maritime Institute is going to offer Maritime Boot Camp, which is going to give individuals their MMC, which they could become a longshoreman, they could work with the Military SEAL Lift Command, and also the Global Wind Course, which is the basic training for offshore wind. And they're they have that training, and so we think it's a really good start to, offshore wind's going to be here, so we decided to offer that. TCP Skills Trade Academy, that's gonna be the welding, the pipe fitting, they have a long list of programs, so we're gonna work with TCC. Bond Secure is going to be a referral program. They have a patient care tech trainee program. If someone wants to go into that field and actually work at the same time, Bond Secure has a OJT program where they will take our individual, put them in the training program, train them, and they will get paid at the same time. And once they complete the training, they get hired by Bond Secure. So that's a great program that we have committed with them, and then we're not giving them money, but we're gonna refer individuals there if they say they're interested. Centera College of Health Science is going to be medical assisting, monitor surveillance, patient care technician, and all those programs, once they complete it, they will be hired by Centera. So that's a really great program for anyone that's interested in healthcare. The Hampton Roads Workforce Council actually has received, I don't know what Steve actually spoke about it last month, their $11 million grant for maritime. We just had a meeting with them yesterday, their team. They're going to have a specialist a recruitment specialist for the city of Portsmouth that's gonna assist individuals if they want to go into maritime. We're gonna hopefully refer individuals to that program, and they also have WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, which is a larger list of training. So if someone wants to go into culinary arts, we could refer them to the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, and they will have the funding for that training. The Adult Learning Center is clinical medical assistant, medical administrative assistant, and CNA and phlebotomy. And the neighborhood, again, is a nonprofit that serves Portsmouth residents. The neighborhood is a nonprofit that is workforce. It's very unique. When I met all his training is with TCC. Actually, all the trainings that they pay for is the same vendors that we have here. But they have bookkeeping, they have IT, they have a lot more than. But what the best part of that program is they have personal development. It's a 6 months program for anyone that's interested to not only get their training paid for, but also do professional development where they're connected with an ILI. They learn about soft skills. Well, also what they do is they received a $350 stipend every month. They meet with them every Wednesday and have like a dinner with them to just go over, hey, if you have a job, these are the things that you need to know. And it's a 6 month program, and then they graduate, they assist them with finding a job, and they follow up with them as well. So if we see someone that needs that more one-on-one and that coaching, we'll refer them to the neighborhood. And then Community Outreach Coalition has patient care technician and cybersecurity. They're in Portsmouth. And they're also a nonprofit. They have an education opportunity center in their office as well. And what they do is they pay for the program and also help them with job search once they do that. And that's another referral that will work with them. Anyone that we see is a best fit for that program, we'll refer them to that organization. So a lot of new things happening. And we're trying to target the in-demand industry, recognize credentials that are for this space. Questions?
If I could just hop in real quick before we get to questions, I know you have probably many. There were partners that were not included in the slide that Nala provided earlier, and probably the biggest partners. So we are, we're working very closely with our businesses to understand what their needs are. So, one of the ways we're doing that, for instance, is if, Ms. Tracy goes out on a business retention visit, depending on the business she's visiting, Nala is there at that meeting with her to inquire about their employment needs, to have an understanding of exactly what types of trades and professions are in demand, what types of skills are required to go along with that, and then we can tailor programs and services so that we are supporting the business community, but we are engaged with them as well. And that's helping to kind of get the word out that these programs are available. And they, I think probably within the last month, they probably had at least half a dozen of those meetings. And we're going to be continuing doing that. But the goal is to have a very robust program with services that reach across, you know, every spectrum of the city to ensure that our residents have a multitude of training and certification opportunities to gain employment. And we're being very strategic about it, though, as we do it.
So it's great exposure for not just Amy, but also me for learning what their higher needs are and learning what they need and what trainings is needed for their, and also learning who they hire. So it's like we know someone has a barrier and we have an employer that will hire them. We can make that first connection with them and help them with their needs. Any questions?
I just want to say, wow. I was looking back at my notes from, I think it was like a year ago, a presentation, and you pretty much hit on everything that we had had in our notes, especially the data, because that was one thing we had talked about was how do we know people were hired?
Yeah.
And so that's huge. The one thing though that stuck out to me, and it was in my notes from the time before, was the difference between men and women. And I had in my notes from a year ago is how do we get more male into the program and working? And the numbers in the gender, it's still the same. It's the men are down. So I don't know, you know, how we get that. I don't know. It's interesting. My son is 19, home from college, and he and like 6 of his friends are all working at Amazon this summer, you know, making great money, and they're all Portsmouth kids, and, you know, really, they're excited. I mean, it's a great job. And Colin's always telling me, he's like, Mom, anybody can get a job there, you know, they're just hiring and hiring. But yet we see these numbers, you know, that the men are still so down. So I think that's something, because everything else that you've touched on, I mean, it's a great program. So I think that's really maybe where we need to focus on and figure out how do we get the males, the numbers to
Yeah.
rise? Because there's enough jobs that on there that, you know, you could see them doing.
So I think that's a really good, like, thing that you brought up. And I think working with a lot of community organizations that work with men, and being able to tell them like, hey, you know, refer your clients here. I met with Back to the Block, big homies. So I've worked with them and, you know, having them know that they could refer their clients and who they've been working with. And we're trying to develop a referral system. So like if they have someone that what their needs are, they're able to make that connection for us.
I also like to say excellent presentation. A lot of the things, questions I had were in your program, so I'm very happy about that. 2 things. One is I really feel that once kids graduate from high school, sometimes it's still really hard to get them in the workforce. And I really wish we could come up with some type of program that financially maybe we could assist with providing internships for those skill sets that our locality really needs. With an employer, like, okay, if you bring that person in and train them during the summer, we'll pay part of this wages or whatever it is. I would like to see something like that develop so that we could get those skill sets identified and help keep them in our community. And then also, I wish Ms. Winston was here because I know redevelopment and housing was granted the ability to do a welfare to work program wherein their residents have to be in a position where they can get jobs after a certain period of time. And I think there are only about 10 in the US that have been given that permission. I didn't realize that process, but there are about 10. So maybe that is also a connection you want to make, because if they realize they have to go to work within a certain amount of time, maybe that would be give them incentive to go and do these work programs to get them into the workforce. But I think it's a great presentation.
Yes, so for the internship, we don't have anything in-house, but we are working with the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, and we provide funding, and they have a regional internship program for the city of Portsmouth youth. We actually hosted their soft skills training about 2 weeks ago here in this, and they had this room was packed with 30 youth from Portsmouth, and they're actually going to be interning with private companies in Portsmouth, but also city departments here. So they're going to start in the coming weeks. They're just doing the interview process. So they're actually interviewing with these different businesses and department heads. And then they're going to be interned and they're going to be paid internship. Hopefully we could maybe do something that's something with the city, but right now we're partnering with the council and working and it's a year-round program. So they actually had to do 2 cohorts this summer because they had over 80 applications just for Portsmouth youth. So hopefully we could expand on that and maybe get more youth, but do more things like that. But we're also, I forgot, we're also going to hopefully work with the CTE from Portsmouth to hopefully work with their youth once they're transitioning at the end to provide them either internship or do a little hiring event for them. So when they do graduate, we have 100% of all the CTE students employed with whatever training they have. So I've met with the coordinator, so we're working on doing that as well. It's funny, I just scheduled a meeting with the department of Ms. Valentine and PRHA to do a collaboration with Portsmouth at Work, and I wrote the program down. So we're gonna actually meet very soon. In August, everyone's on vacation. So in August, we're gonna talk about how can these 3 departments, because I think it's essential, because Portsmouth at Work could also help the Department of Services and Housing Authority because they all need some type of workforce piece, and we could provide that if it could be an avenue of a workshop, or if they need training, we could provide those resources for them or connect them with an employer. So we're hopefully going to meet with them and develop some type of collaboration in-house.
And also, give you an accolade on your presentation. One thing I didn't see in your presentation is projection forward. In other words, have you set some goals or some metrics for the program looking forward for this year and years out?
So we didn't put any metrics yet because I think we're gonna see how the first year is. And then once we have our first year to see which programs that we put in place are impactful, we're gonna go and move forward from there to see where we're gonna continue and now we were able to set a goal because everything has been changed and we have new programming and what can we do and improve and then move forward there.
I think one thing that, just to add to that, that we're going to be doing is tracking, trends and doing a better job working with the Virginia Employment Commission of tracking unemployment data and where we are annually with respect to, our unemployed population, which gets a little bit also, I think, in line with your question about, the male to female ratio and understanding kind of our community data beyond the program and how Portsmouth at Work is impacting that, what the effect is. So we're still kind of working to build that out, but we have a kind of a stronger, more closer working relationship now with BEC, Virginia Career Works. So we're going to be, kind of stressing that because it's really, it's greater than just this program. It's Portsmouth and the state of our economy, our residents. So, and same thing with respect to, household income, we're gonna be tracking that, I think, more closely as well to see how we affect that.
Great presentation. I had a question with regards to marketing. Are you doing do you have a budget or do you have anything offline, any offline marketing? Because if you're trying to reach a certain demographic, young minority men in particular, and get them involved in these programs, they aren't on social media. They're not doing this all day. They're in the streets. They're listening to radios. They're doing other things. You need to market to them specifically to get them involved in it and make them aware that it's available to them. So is there anything being done offline as far as like underwriting on Norfolk State radios, free advertising?
So nothing on the radio or like underwriting, but we print our flyers and we take them to the libraries. So, the rec centers and our partners put them like out. So like, cause a lot of times flyers are impactful because, a lot of people find that easier to find information versus social media. So we don't have anything yet. Hopefully maybe we can, get that maybe later on to get something on the radio for us or even on like a billboard,
Yeah.
in the city. Because
Yeah.
I think that's really big because if they see it on a billboard or on a sign in the city, that captures a lot of people's attention as well.
Exactly.
So that's a great idea though. So I think that's maybe a goal for us too.
The commissioner of the revenue has a billboard. We could use that. I do have one last question. Sorry. And I think this is interesting because I had written, like if y'all are also tracking or what you're hearing on the barriers, and this is something we've talked about, what can we also do to help break down the barriers to employment? And you always hear lack of childcare and transportation, which is interesting because it's more women that are going through the workforce. So it's usually the childcare, but that still is a huge barrier to it, along with transportation. So I just would like us to keep in the back of our head, okay, as we see this and as y'all are hearing, and I assume y'all are tracking also, what the barriers are. So maybe in the future we can come up with, also more plans to how to assist, knocking down those barriers.
So that was one thing I did notice, and one thing like is transportation, childcare, and sometimes it's like not being able to pay for utilities and like a lot of things I've heard. So while I was working on the CPDG to extend it, and I was speaking to Jeff from the planning department. I asked him like, is there anything else that we could apply for or like something that would be eligible? And there is. So it is a program that they have funding through Home ARP, the American Rescue Plan, that we're able to request funding. And this is supportive services like transportation, childcare, to pay for utilities. And there is some eligibility requirements. So I'm working right now on an SOP to request that funding from the planning department that we will receive to assist our individuals that come and use our services, because if someone's barrier is transportation and we have that availability to provide that, I'm hopefully gonna work on that and that's like a goal for me. And if we do get it, we're gonna have a celebration. So hopefully we do get that because it's a bit of money that they have available. And it doesn't hurt to ask and request, right? That's all we can do. So I'm working on that and I've worked on grants and like putting SOPs before, so hopefully this one gets through.
Thank you.
No, I had one question, and it's a little bit different from what we discussed here. But if you look at the percentage of high school students that don't graduate.
Yeah.
How many jobs that you're looking at don't require a high school degree? Because those are, and I don't want to paint a broad brush, but those are people who are maybe out there idle, kind of lost a little bit.
Yeah.
And if we can address that audience, both in terms of, hey, because you didn't get your high school degree, we certainly encourage you, but if you don't have it, here are still jobs that are available for you.
So that's a great question, because there is a large population that don't have a degree. So our business to business meetings that we have, that's one of the things I do ask, what do you require a high school diploma? And I've developed a list. Right now, I think I have 3 employers in Portsmouth that do not require a degree. That we're able to, you know, if someone has that barrier and wants to be employed, we're gonna send that. And because we have already made that connection and that relationship with that employer, I could send it directly to the HR. And like, hey, we're working with this person with Portsmouth at Work. This is their resume that we work. They don't have a high school diploma, but can you please consider them for the positions that don't require that? So we have worked on that. We have developed a list with employers that are willing to work with us.
That's great.
And also a list for like re-entry as well.
Great president. Martin, Councilman.
Yeah, so to the question about barriers, you had 628 people register, but only 108 started training.
Yeah.
There's 500 people that you can go back and pulse to find out
Yeah.
what kept you from pursuing training.
So that is the
So
plan.
it's typically the things that Commissioner Drury mentioned, but another one is they gotta have a job in order to keep the roof over their head. And so they can't walk away from that job in order to go get trained for a better job. So understanding what those barriers are, I think will help us help them. I'm pleased to hear that you're reached out to Craig Hill and the CTE
Yep.
folks. So it's really important, and here's why. We graduated 866 kids this year, 866 seniors graduated. 82 of them got a work certificate of some sort, so less than 10%. More importantly, 8 graduated into a job, and 6 of the 8 went into the Navy, Marine Corps, and Army. Okay, so 2 kids out of 866 graduated into a job, not a job certificate, but a job. So the Workforce Council does a great job at working with industry to find jobs that we can connect employers to kids so that when they walk across the stage to get their diploma, they're also walking across the stage to get their conditional job employment agreement. I think we just need to do a better job of connecting kids in the CTE programs in particular, because they're planning to head straight into the workforce after high school. And so understanding what are the industry's needs, and then more importantly, getting the industries connected to the kids so that they graduate into jobs and not into, fingers crossed, that their certificate is gonna yield them a job opportunity.
That is the plan.
Were you able to provide us with a broader picture that says, in this particular company, these are the demands they have for employment opportunities?
Like a list of job openings that they have?
Yeah.
That is a request I could ask from the employers, but pretty much what I kind of did ask, like, hey, do you want to send me a list of jobs? They tell me to go on their website, and those are the list that they have. But that is something that we can develop to like an ongoing updated like job log, that when we do have someone, like, we know exactly what openings there are and which employers have it.
Do you have access to Jobs EQ?
Jobs is what?
Jobs EQ.
No.
Just to that point, there is basically a program, Jobs EQ, that has a component of it which provides job listings. And you can get that for locality. I think you probably can get that through the community college. They normally have that. And they can give you periodic reports as to, and in other words, you can get it on a monthly, 6 months or whatever quarterly, time frame you want by geographic area. And that'll give you a snapshot of what the demand. So,
One thing that the Virginia Employment Commission, posing, is they're able to do is send, so they do a regional, so what they do, they can't, they have sent us one, they sent us a list of jobs that are opened with the company's name. It goes by region, but we could filter it for Portsmouth, so that's something we can do. And that's not just the companies that that I've met with, that's every company that's in Portsmouth.
Yeah, the downside of that is that it's only those companies that list their jobs with the VEC.
Yeah.
And the jobs EQ is a broader listing that takes in Indeed and, you know, all those others as well.
I'll look into that.
Take a look at that.
Thank you.
Good discussion. Thank you so much for the work.
Oh my God, don't leave, stay working.
I really have to, commend and thank, you know, Nala and Sanja and Spriggs, and they are 110% dedicated to this thing, day in, day out. They're completely focused on this. And one that really, you know, goals for this year, big goal for this year is to have this center activated and have residents, you know, in this office. And I tasked them with that, and, you know, the last 60 days, and this place has been busy. I mean,
Yeah.
you can hear the doorbell while we've been meeting going off,
Yeah.
you know, off, the company coming in, so.
Is there any way we could have signage in the lobby? I mean, because when we walk in the lobby, you just feel that you're only at Town Bank.
We put some things up, they disappear after a bit of time, but we'll continue to work on that and see what we can.
And one last like recent update is Bonsphere has a community hub on George Washington. And I've just met with the program manager there and the director. And that's like by the Craddock community. And we're actually gonna partner with them to use their space to hiring events there. Because we think having a second location to be able to be in the community. So we're going to August, we're gonna have workshops there and hiring events. So it's not just here, but people in the community could go to another location and it's more accessible. So that's a big excitement, and that I just met with them last week, so that'll be for August. So more hiring events, because now we're adding Tuesdays there.
Thank you so much, Noah.
Yeah.
Now we'll take a look at our EDA property update.
Actually, Chair, I think before we get to that, we do have just a quick update on the business.
I'm glad.
That's okay. One here to help you see where you can hide. And I'm gonna actually ask Amy if Amy can run you through, because she's actually recently been the one who's been helping and overseeing a lot of this activity. So with that.
Good morning, everyone. So grant program updates, sorry. First thing is we just opened our first round of FY 2012 grants. It is open July 1 through 31. This statistic isn't up there, but as of today, I received 6 applications. 4 of them are complete and actually considered submitted. The other 2, I'm waiting for a few more pieces of information before I submit them. So those 4 are under review. They're currently at, they're at the city looking at city taxes and fees. They are all Smart Start Business Development grants, so it's our micro grant of $2,000. As you know, they typically, all of the real property investment grants and acceleration grants come in the last week and last day that the grant range is open. So I anticipate those days being very busy, as well as the following weeks in August. What Brian and I went through, and information that you guys have requested was grant recipient status. We looked at the grant recipients that were in 2022 up through the end of January of 2023. For the business development grants, there were 29 that were awarded. Of those 29, only 12 businesses have a 2023 Portsmouth business license, which is a rate of 41.37%. Of the business acceleration grants that were awarded, 6 were, and all 6 of those businesses have renewed their 2023 business licenses. All businesses, of those 17 businesses for the business development grant have been contacted to determine their status. And I did receive communication from one advising that they are in the process of renewing their business license. So I've also been in contact with the Commissioner of the Revenue to make sure that process is going smoothly.
So on these numbers, we can just go back. There we go. a little bit disappointed to see the, retention percentage there under the development grant. Keep in mind, these are new businesses, they're startups. On average, 20% of businesses fail within their first year of existence, 50% fail within the first 5 years. So, that's not unheard of. Obviously, we're about trending double that. Doesn't necessarily mean that these businesses, do not exist. They may just not hold a Portsmouth business license. They may have located, they could be in another Hampton Roads locality. So that's why we're doing the outreach to kind of check and follow up and see exactly what's happened. The other thing we're doing going forward for this year is, trying to do a better job of working with the businesses on their business plan, to make sure that it's feasible, sustainable, and really putting them in touch with resources, whether it's Small Business Development Center from the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce, working with Black Brand to ensure that they are getting the coaching and resources they need to really be successful. We're going to be tracking this, and again, the data collection is big. Our goal is to see that retention rate go on for this year.
And actually, was there any trends and types of businesses that either had or did not have a business license?
What I noticed mostly were the ones that were online only, where they were selling something online. And I did multiple layers of research. I didn't just contact the Commissioner of Revenue's office. I also checked with the SCC before I even sent John Lash my list. And I just straight up Googled these businesses because I figured you've got to have some kind of online presence. So I was looking at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I didn't find anybody with TikTok. I looked at LinkedIn, and some of them I can't find. Now, one other one that sort of reached out, not in reference to my follow-up with them, but they asked to be listed on our business directory, but they were on our list of grant recipients that don't have a Portsmouth business license. So I wrote them again, said, hey, contacted you the other day. Have you had a chance to renew your business license yet before I put your information on our website? I've not heard back from them, but I figure I'll do another round of follow-up just in case and see what's going on. But that was the only thing I found was mostly the online only businesses.
Yeah, along the lines of what Neil was saying, that would be great for us, especially with determining guidelines, because online was on our radar, and we don't want to discourage that. But if they're not staying in business, we need to kind of look at that. So, yeah, so I think that will help us in the future.
Well, and I think it goes in line with what Brian was saying about the business plan, maybe
Yeah.
really focusing on the online one on the business.
The other update I wanted to give you guys was, we talked about marketing and outreach for our grant programs. And we've been coming up with a better marketing plan. So not only will we be using our own website, but the city's marketing department, we're gonna be doing their email distribution. I have social media accounts on Facebook and LinkedIn that we are consistently posting on. And then just like Nella, we're utilizing our partner organizations. Those include so far the Hampton Roads Chamber, the Old Town Business Association, Black Brand has been a huge partner, the Portsmouth Partnership, and the Hampton Roads Alliance. As we're having meetings with them or we're attending their meetings, we're constantly talking about our grants. Black Brand a couple weeks ago put on they called it Grantonomics presentation for their B-Force Accelerator graduates or anyone from the public that's a business owner that's interested in learning. And I was able to present our grant programs alongside Norfolk, as well as the SBA was there to talk about federal grants. Several of the people that attended, or business owners that attended that meeting, have already reached out and submitted their applications this round. And then the biggest and newest update is doing a grant recipient highlight and award presentation. So Brian and I designed a giant check.
Oh,
This is dry erase, and we already have verbiage in our grant agreement that states that we can use photos for marketing purposes. So as checks are cut, actual payment checks are cut, we'll have them sent to our office, contact the grant recipient, ask them to come in person to receive it. We'll also be using that as a photo op. To help us with our marketing, but obviously, and then they can reshare.
That's right.
Yes, a good idea.
I love it.
Yeah, right?
Good idea.
Great idea.
Yeah, just something new and different and no other locality do it.
Go Portsmouth.
Yeah.
And that's all I have for this today.
Good stuff.
Good information.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Now we can do it. ED.
Yes, yes. The update. If we could hit the next slide, please. There you go. So just a real quick, run through again on the property listing. And these are, this is just a portion of your properties, that you hold in your inventory. Of course, your inventory is getting shorter and shorter, right? But just to give you a quick update on where we stand, we do have some closings that are coming up. 3479 Greenwood Drive. This is just behind the property we own at Victory and Greenwood. We are scheduled to close on that next week. City Attorney's Office has been working through the title work and getting that all teed up. So we look to close on that next week, which will be great because that will add to the site that we already have listed, Harvey Lindsay. So we'll have a little bit over an acre of land now. To market once we close. 1609 High Street. This is a property that's adjacent to some city-owned land that you have under contract. We will be closing on that next week as well, is what we're targeting. So those two acquisitions will be complete next week. Ms. Terry, did you have a question? I saw your hand.
I'm going down the list, but I need my glasses. 219 Pavilion Drive,
Yes.
what is that?
That is adjacent to the Frito-Lay, the PepsiCo building, there on, Fourth Street. It is the, almost 4-acre vacant land as you come off the interstate, there onto Court.
How they express.
You were in Hog, I know, I think I
Yes.
know it, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Afton, we're purchasing that old facility,
That's the old movie.
movie theater, okay,
And,
perfect.
we're working through some title issues there. I think we've discovered a lien on that property that we're looking to see about having resolved. And that's at the state level. So the city attorney's working through that.
And 3315 Airline Boulevard,
That is actually now under contract. That is property in Hattonsville. They actually, returned the contract yesterday, and Chair, before you leave today, I need to get your signature on that. That is, a property that we acquired from the Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and there is going to be a contracting firm, building an office, on that property. A couple other, noteworthy items, 1028 High Street. This is the Murray and Holmes property. We're also working to close on that. We do have some title issues we're working to resolve there. We would expect that to have perhaps to be maybe 30 to 60 days out. 710 Lincoln Street, that's the property Big Homies is acquiring for their rec center. That is in the site plan review process. With city staff. So again, we're waiting on that approval to happen. 1100 High Street, we were working to close that. Loda Cooper Companies, that's going to be the Baines Point multifamily project. They are actually meeting tomorrow with city staff regarding their site plan submission. So that will, in all likelihood, happen by the end of the calendar year, we hope. We talked about 219 Pavilion. We addressed, I think, 1021, 1107 High Street, earlier this morning with the extension for A4 development. 73 Farragut Street, that's in Craddock. We're still working on the demolition plan for that, but that's the warehouse we acquired last year. 42 Afton discussed. 2631 Turnpike Road. It's a single family lot. We're working to have that under contract. And then again, Airline Boulevard, we're under contract, essentially with that now. And I think that would be a quick closing on the airline property. So, a lot of activity, going on, within the next 30 to 90 days. So you'll see some properties coming off the inventory and others coming back up. Happy to answer any questions you may have about the update.
What's interesting is that we're starting to get a lot of density downtown, with, 1100 High Street, the apartment complex is being renovated. It might be a good look to look at what are some of the amenities that we can look at for living downtown. Is it walkable, bike trails, all of those things to make it just a great experience. So, might be a discussion in a later meeting.
Yeah, I think, we're working to build that critical mass, which is really essential to being able to attract the things that we all talk about wanting to have. But we have to have the population to do that. So we're getting there. We're making headway. It's a slow but steady build. But we're continuing to do that. And as these communities come online, then we're working to try to see, okay, well, what will bring that those residents desire to have around the corner next door.
Any additional questions?
Not about that, but before we go into closed meeting, is there any movement in us, setting up some meetings with council? Us jointly?
I was gonna have that in a report backs, but
Okay,
Yes,
but that's
Mr. Terry.
fine. You can wait.
Ms. Terry can respond.
Okay.
The city manager can respond.
Right, so, I've been working with, and I've had this request, through council as well. So the strategy or the plan that I had was first to sit down with council in a one-day retreat. We had a retreat before and we provided some information. Brian gave an update on EDA. And it was a great retreat, in my opinion. But what we want to do on this one is sit down with council first. I'm gonna have a retreat with council, and what is it that they want to see? What is the big plan? What is the big picture? After that meeting, we'll bring in Economic Development Authority and have a group meeting. But that also gives me an opportunity in between time to talk to PRHA, because what I want to make sure we're doing is moving in the same direction. Because, I'm not sure what everybody thinks EDA does. So it will be a great opportunity to make sure they do know what you do and the funds that you have to be able to purchase, so that we are all moving in the same direction to still have the common goal for the city to grow. And adding PHRA in there is to ensure PRHA doesn't go off buying land or selling land that we can either use or we need to dispose of, because we're moving in that direction. So to me, so just to answer your question in a quick summary, council is gonna meet first. That looks like I'm trying to have it. Everybody's out of town and does holiday and vacation, not holiday, but vacation around this time through August. So that's why I kind of push things, start up with September. So it gives me an opportunity for everybody to get back, kids go to school. So we have September for us, if not the end of September, then early August, early October for EDA and PRHA group meeting. So I'm looking at September and October, so October for you all, if that's, answers your question.
The enterprise zone final report, do you have any idea when that's gonna come in? And will that be something that will be discussed at the city council?
That could be a topic of discussion. And maybe what would be good is for EDA to kind of pull some things in, or maybe have your topics of discussion so that we won't ramble off into Neverland, but actually have some focal points that we want to hard hit. And maybe some of the challenges that EDA has as we try to recruit developers. Because, everybody, what we all hear and what you all hear is, why can't we have this? Why can't we have that? So it's a good opportunity to say, why we can't have it at this current time, but we can recruit for this. Or we are looking at that, and what area are we looking to expand and grow? And what's already on the board for acquisition, what are we disposing, so what do we expect for those, developers to bring in that are purchasing this land? So I think it's a good, back and forth conversation, but to also put on the table your challenges with EDA as it relates to city, so that we can figure out where do we need to bridge the gap, and we can be focused.
The other thing I would just throw out there is that most of our funding comes from selling property.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't make the big acquisitions that would really move the city. It's probably gonna need some discussion, is city council at some point really put funds into EDA to make those big purchases, so.
Yeah. And I think that's fair, because again, we're looking at what is it, and that's what starts the conversation. What do we want? So if we're going after certain businesses and there has to be some incentives attached. And how do we entice developers to come to the city? Again, they may be looking at it as demographic, but the reality is we have people, and, we're 97,000 is not a small number. And then we have a lot of traffic now on the highways coming down. So you're still getting that they may not be residents, but they're commuting back and forth through our city. So we need to be able to capture that and inform people that, hey, at the end of the day, we may have this many residents, but we have this level of traffic that while they're here, they could be doing what we want you to come and bring to the city as a business. So, there's a lot to discuss. I think that that's very important. Funding is always important.
The three areas that I would suggest is basically the entertainment district, the innovation district, and the waterfront. Those are, I think, three priorities, because
Entertainment.
innovation, waterfront.
Yeah.
Waterfront is on everybody's mind
Mm.
and has been for 20 years. But I think we're getting closer and closer every day. And I'll share that at the retreat.
Excited.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we're gonna go into a closed meeting.
Do we need to add an agenda item?
I think potentially coming out,
Okay.
to do that.
I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711 A.3 for purposes of discussing disposition of real property, whereas an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding the disposition of 425 Madison Street.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Ms. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Chair, the item is adopted by a vote of 5-0. We are now in a closed meeting.
To the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from public meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Second.
Move. Believe that was a second.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Mr. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Chair, the item is adopted by a vote of 5-0. We are now in an open meeting.
I move for a motion to add 425 Madison Street to the agenda.
So moved.
Second, okay. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Chair, the item is approved by a vote of 5-0.
And if one of the commissioners would like to move, you could. Move to approve the following resolution. Whereas J.H. Hardy Inc., or its assigns, the developer, has proposed to purchase 425 Madison Street, tax parcel 0023054, the property for use as a parking lot. And whereas EDA intends to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with developer, the agreement pursuant to which the developer will purchase the property for a price of $7,330, the purchase price. And whereas the property is a small parcel that is surplus and of no strategic value to EDA, and whereas the conveyance of the property to the developer will increase the city's tax base and lower EDA's property maintenance expenses. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the chair, vice chair, and secretary are each authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of EDA. The chair, vice chair, and secretary and their designees are each hereby authorized to take such further actions and execute such further applications, documents, and instruments, including without limitation, a deed conveying the property and related closing documents, as may be necessary or desirable in furtherance of the conveyance and development of the property in accordance with the agreement, as the same may be amended from time to time. Provided, however, that any subsequent amendment to the agreement altering the purchase price shall be subject to the prior authorization of the Board of Commissioners. This resolution shall be effective immediately upon its adoption.
So moved.
Second.
The roll, Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Ms. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Here, the item is approved by a vote of 5-0. Thank you.
Are there any items submitted by board members?
We had discussion in this meeting, a possibility of, adding staff, for the property management and development and the thing. Is there any update, on that possibility?
Yes, and, something we are looking into. I had a, conversation with the city manager last week regarding, the EDA's, support, through funding for the position. And we are, checking with, the city's finance and budget, office to determine how we could do that. Also looking into whether or not that constitutes a grant funded position, and how we would handle that from an HR standpoint. Or if you were suggesting that that be a permanent funding source, then we would approach that differently. But we're looking at that and just trying to figure out how, logistically that would all work. But, there seemed to be support.
Is that a function that Harvey Lindsay could undertake since they already represent us in real estate, commercial?
For the brokerage services, and any, leasing support, yes, but, a lot of the, I guess, the work that position would likely undertake,
Acquire properties that we already own?
would probably fall within the scope of what we procured that for. It'd be a lot of kind of day-to-day, management of property and then projects. So it's probably a little bit beyond the scope of what they could handle.
Yeah, I think for what Brian just to kind of elaborate on what Jazz, because I thought the same thing, but I think Brian does a whole lot of the day-to-day
Mhm.
for all we see and all they're doing. So I need Brian to focus on something else.
Yeah.
So.
big
So,
picture.
right. And it's the day-to-day that
Yeah.
absorbs so much of his time that if somebody could do that, and just take that responsibility off of him and then deal with the, third part, well, not third party, the real estate agencies, because they can share the same vision, it would be a lot better on Brian.
So I think it sounds like we're looking at that.
Yeah.
We'll come back and have, I think, an update as soon as we have some direction on that.
We are still awaiting the Rivers Casino minority participation report.
You are, and I actually, ran into the individual, yesterday. I was at the casino for a meeting and, they were here in town. So I reminded them of that and they, assured me they would work to have that to us. While we're on the topic, I am pleased to share that they, have, announced that they are moving forward with the hotel. So that process is moving forward. So they're having conversations and discussions about exactly what that means, but they are in planning stages and moving forward with that phase of the project, which I think is great news to hear. So, and we'll just increase the amount of work that's taking place in their investment as well. So, but we will be working to get that report for you all.
I would like to say, you know, you were talking about so many bad things get said in Portsmouth, but with the casino and now knowing that the hotel is moving forward, that's huge, especially when all you're hearing every day right now is across the river, which is not good. So it's real, makes us look even better. So that's great.
If you may have heard, I think, last week, this week, the revenue, report has been released and, I think it was just at 20.5 million, which I think, translated to 1.2 million in revenues to the city. So again, it's meeting expectations and projections and it's actually overperforming, from what we anticipated. So good news on both parts.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, I had one other thing I want to say. I think I told y'all at the last meeting that I had been traveling a little bit lately, and Toronto was one, and Savannah was one. And I was really focusing on their downtown areas and stuff. And I know that a lot of what we do, we talk about needing the density to do that, but they really most of them focus down on these little independent stores where density is not so much required as you would with your change and so forth. I mean, and that's what you see, all of these unique little shops. So I'm hoping is that as we, go forward with the enterprise zone and other, that we kind of focus in. And then a big thing with all of those cities was they actually do block off like maybe an aisle section, a 3-block section where you can't have cars coming down. And that is just pedestrian traffic. And that seems to have a lot of boom day and night, for their industry. So I don't know if that's something we even thought about. I know they kind of did something like that during COVID, but that might be something we want to continue to look at.
When you mentioned that, I saw recently that in DC, they have a manager of nightlife. When I first heard
Okay.
but what that person is responsible for is really looking at all of the nightlife activities for citizens in DC and really working with the establishments to promote it and make sure that they're addressing some of their concerns. So, and when she took another look at it, it seemed like a reasonable request.
To pile on to Nala's earlier workforce development brief, I want to mention that the Go Tech bus is parked in front of the Children's Museum this week.
Cool.
It's 1-minute walk from front door to the Go Tech bus. So I would invite you all to go visit while you're close by. Starbase is hosting 20 kids. They're on the bus building and testing robots. The robotics competition will be Thursday morning inside the Children's Museum. The reason GoTech is important to us, we have outfitted first middle school classroom with the GoTech training aids at Craddock Middle School. We're working with the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. They've committed funding for outfitting a second middle school classroom. And we're working with them to try to get funding for the third middle school classroom so that each of our middle schools will have the GoTech training aids available to our middle schoolers. So we're trying to get kids enthused about STEM, particularly STEM around technology and engineering, which is what GoTech is all about. And the teacher that's going to be teaching at Craddock this fall is actually working in the middle of the summer camp right now to learn what it is that she'll be teaching when the fall rolls around. So I invite you to go pay a visit to the bus. It's organized chaos, 20 kids on the bus, and they are just up to their ears in fun. So stop by if you get a chance.
Can I ask, you had a lot of interesting numbers. Did you also have in those numbers on high school, the graduations from this class on like how many went to college?
So I didn't get the college graduate numbers
Okay.
because I was aiming at understanding the impact that our CTE program is having on our kids. I do know that we had a little over 200 kids get dual enrollment credit at Tidewater Community College. 180 of those 200 kids are college bound. So actually got college credit as a result of their dual enrollment at TCC while they were in high school. In fact, I think there were around 20 kids that graduated with their associate degree from TCC. And they actually got their associate degree from TCC before they got their high school diploma because of the kind of the timing of the graduation ceremonies. So, yeah, give you a sense of, it's somewhere between 20 and 30% of the kids are headed to college. But that means somewhere between 70 and 80% of the kids are not headed to college. And so to serve them in a way that only 2 of them graduated into non-military jobs, we have more work to do in our CTE program to connect directly into industry.
Yeah, because, yeah, I would be interested in that and looking at it all. Because I know like 2 of my son's best friends, they weren't in the CTE, but they both, one went to the shipyard here and one went in Newport News directly after college are doing great. But, you know, so there's 2 right there, but they weren't in that program. They were just the regular program. So. Okay.
We do have a couple of report backs. We do have just a couple of report backs. There had been a request at a prior meeting about a update on the city's broadband infrastructure. So Cliff Hayes, our Chief Information Officer, has made himself available to come before you at your September meeting to give you an update on the city's broadband network as well as private infrastructure in the city. So we'll include that on an upcoming agenda, have discussion about that. And the other item, which was a carryover from your June meeting, the minority participation policy. I do believe we're in need of some volunteers to establish a committee to carry that item forward and work on some policies and procedures as it relates to our programs and development matters. So, Chair, if I could ask that perhaps you could help establish a working group, a committee to continue investigating that in terms of having a policy. I think it's going to be largely dependent on the disparity study and the results of that, at least to start kind of mapping out what some of the things we'll need to look at and be helpful to have is a working group. Okay. And
Do we have a timeline on the disparity study?
Yeah, she did a presentation to council a couple of weeks ago, maybe last month. She's given me a draft. Well, she's preparing a draft and she should have it sometime by the end of this month. So I would say, early next month should be finalized. They gave her some additional questions,
Okay.
which kind of added on to time.
Who's the firm or organization doing the disparity study this summer?
Same one, Mitchell, GT, MGT, Vernetta Mitchell. They did it the last time as well.
That was it. There are no further questions. This meeting is adjourned.